Okay, good day. So, if there were a pill, it won't be this simple when and if it happens. But if there were a pill there on the table, and you could take it and live healthy, that's important, healthy indefinitely, would you take the pill? I've asked that question of students for years and of audiences that I've spoken to about these topics. Fascinating, the conversation. In the book, I give some conversation about some of the responses I get. But what we're talking about here, not as simple as a pill, but as and when it unfolds, we're talking about what we could call radical evolution, putting our hands on the levers of evolution and moving that process along much faster than the millions of years that it has historically taken. And we're talking about using radical breakthrough technologies like advanced artificial intelligence, genetic engineering. You may have heard of CRISPR, the gene editing tool, tissue engineering, robotics, more and more nanotechnology, and so on. So our focus on this brief video is the physical enhancements, and the enhancement that has, from the very beginning of this, for decades ago when transhumanism really got rolling, the enhancement that has gotten the most attention is longevity, terminating aging in the human species. I teach students who are traditional college age, most of them 18, 19, 20. And when those students get in their 60s and 70s, when maybe you, maybe your children, grandchildren, I really think that they're going to have options. We don't know exactly what they are in the outlines yet, but they're going to have options that if many people knew what those options were now, it would blow the top of their head off. And it is possible. There's some very smart experts that think it's very possible that we could terminate aging as we understand it. When I give talks like this to audiences, and the audience members who are, I don't know, 50 and above, I have to work on the technology side. I have to explain the technology a little bit more for them to come on board and be in the conversation. The under 35 age people in the audience, they get it like that because they've grown up with technology and they understand its integration into our lives and into our bodies. They get it much faster. But it's very important, I said this, very important to understand, we're not talking about super longevity with tubes in a nursing home. We're talking about healthy living. And it's not immortality, it is living indefinitely, because you could still get hit by a bus. So the urge, the deep instinct, Freud helped us see, is survival is very deep. Woody Allen said he's not afraid of death, he just doesn't want to be there when it shows up, and he doesn't want to live on in the hearts of his fellow citizens. He wants to live in his apartment. So we joke about this, but it is a deep-seated desire. And the mental barriers I've noticed to considering the possibility that we may terminate aging in the human species is very rigid sometimes, because all of human history, we have lived, we have been born, humans have lived and then died. Now the living part has lengthened, but that's been the basic paradigm. And it is sort of ingrained in our sort of psyche, in our collective consciousness, if you will, that dying is a part of the human experience. And it may very well be, but there's plenty of people and technologies that are suggesting that we may need to take a look at this. Now, of course, religious people may, and even others may have an opinion about human beings being more than a body, more than a physicality. But at one level, I think we can all agree that the body at one level is a machine, and machines can be tinkered with. Machines can be processed in various ways. So with regard to superlongevity, let's focus in on that radical enhancement, physical enhancement. There's actually several paths to superlongevity. It's not like we have all our eggs in one basket. And there's the what you could call the boring, wet approach of my associate on several projects, Aubrey de Grey, D-E-G-R-E-Y. You really should Google Aubrey de Grey just to get a look at him. He is a leader in the superlongevity movement. And get a look at him. He looks like Methuselah. He looks like he's 1,000 years old right now. But he has identified paths to rejuvenate the body from cell damaged accumulation due to living. And so he has raises money and has a research people working on various aspects of rejuvenating the body from this cell damage. But that's only one path. And cyborg. A cyborg is a integration of machines into the human, into biology. I mean, I am in a primitive level, and eyeglasses is a cyborg, right? A integration of some technology into biology. So as this tissue engineering and body part replacement capability is enhanced, there is the possibility of extending life. Genetic manipulations, I don't think we even have much of a clue yet the capabilities that are going to unfold as a result of genetic manipulations. The Genome Project in the early part of the century just opened the door to all kinds of possibilities. It's not going to be as simple as finding the aging gene and switching it off, but at the lay level, you can kind of see that that's the idea of genetic manipulation. And then also, I think the public should understand that it's not going to be a situation where you wake up one day and all scientists and longevity enthusiasts have discovered how to terminate aging. It's not going to be like that. Here's a concept: longevity escape velocity. Longevity escape velocity, LEV. That's the idea captured in the title of a book by Ray Kurzweil, a leading transhumanist or people, the movement to push forward on all these kinds of developments. Kurzweil's book, Live Long Enough to Live Forever. So the idea is, if you live 1 year of life, and in that year, science and technology extends the lifespan at least 1 year, then you're there. You've escaped, so to speak. Longevity escape velocity. So it's not that aging will be terminated in full overnight, but there is this gradual development that will be available. So just ponder human beings beginning to live for hundreds of years or thousands of years. Just the implications of that, the implications for just something like Social Security, the implications, for family life, politics, religious rituals, and institutions. It is just mind-boggling. And even if it's 100 years or more out, we need to be thinking about this as a society and as faith traditions, one of my particular interests. There are all kinds of particular issues that are raised, religious issues, for example, which are not purely religious issues, the role of the body, the role of physicality in who we are as human beings. So there was an early Christian writer in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul, who a question was put to him, with what kind of body? So among the scholars that I work with, there's some resistance to some of the super longevity programs that tend to move away from the biological system that we have as a body. And I'm in a bit of a minority because I push back in this way that question put to Paul with what kind of body, right? So to shift into a more technologically based body is not necessarily moving away from a body, it's just moving to a different kind of body. And in fact, to pull again from the Apostle Paul, Paul's notion of transformational resurrection of the body in the afterlife or whatever is imperishable, powerful, glorified, and that's exactly kind of what the transhumanists want, right? Bodies that are imperishable and powerful and glorified. So we're not talking just possibility about biological super longevity, but the transhumanists are interested in any kind of super longevity that maintains our constitution as a person, our sense of identity and consciousness. And they would suggest that does not necessarily mean biology. So again, pull in the tissue regeneration from Wake Forest Institute of Regenerative Medicine, which is not that far from where I live, where they have already made skin, bladder, muscle, kidney cells, vagina have been grown in labs and implanted into humans, and they're working on 30, 40 more organs last time I looked. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services says that regenerative medicine is the next evolution of medical treatments. Raises the question for religious people, is this of God? Are we tinkering with God's work? And this is I devote a whole chapter to this in the book, Religion and the Technological Future. But just to summarize it here, the argument that yes, this can be interpreted as the work of God, as the grace of God, is the concept of human beings as created co-creators, that God has given us a brain that has developed science and technology, and that as in the Garden of Eden we are to till it and keep it, then that the idea is that medicine, for example, traditional medicine has extended human life, biological life. So if you see that is a part of the work of God through the hands of the doctors, for example, what is to say that the extension of that in terms of quantity, in terms of superintelligence, is not also the work of God. So it's a debate. I'm not so much giving the answer to this as I am saying that the faith traditions need to very much work on this. And not just the Judeo-Christian Islamic tradition, the monotheistic traditions, but the karmic religions. The whole concept of karma and reincarnation will be reframed and into kind of a new understanding as longevity extends out. I always want to point out that while this sounds very science fiction, the billionaire class is very much involved in this. The Silicon Valley is very much involved in this. And in fact, you as a taxpayer are helping to fund this kind of research through the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, which is an arm of the Pentagon, which of course their interest is in building soldiers that are more resilient and stronger and can see better and fight better. But that the offshoots of that kind of research in DARPA have implications for the broader public. So we've touched here on, didn't just touched on, I do much more in the book, but we've touched on the physical enhancements, particularly give an example of super longevity, which is just one of 5 categories of enhancements, along with cognitive, which another video, affective or emotional enhancement, moral enhancement, which people say, what do you mean moral? Can we morally enhance human beings? Well, that's a really robust discussion among ethicists and scholars. And then spiritual enhancement. There's also a video on cryonics, which I have a bit of an inside look at, having toured the Alcor facility in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is the leading cryonics organization in the world. And what does cryonics have to do with all this? Well, let's say super longevity, we have that breakthrough not in the next 2 or 3 decades, but say 150, 100, 200 years from now. Well, there are those who say, well, we need a stopgap measure, and cryonics will allow me to preserve who I am, however you answer that question, until we can solve the aging problem. Anyway, it's a fascinating journey. It is very, in my view, a conversation that is sorely needed, and we are way behind the curve in terms of having this conversation in society and in the faith tradition. So I look forward to journeying with you in some of the other videos to explore these questions. Thank you very much, and you have a good day.